Small Scale, written by Twinkletail. Chapter 2. Spike felt warm, wonderfully, wonderfully warm. He'd had no idea that the rock he'd chosen to bask in would work quite this well. Had he been awake, he likely would have vowed on the spot to never underestimate a rock again. Pinky's sister Maud would have appreciated that vow. Perhaps he'd ask Pinky to write a letter to her later about his newfound appreciation for all things sedimentary. Unless this one was metamorphic. Or even igneous? Rocks weren't really his strong suit. Except for a knack for choosing good basking rocks, apparently. Spike would think more about these things when he woke up. For now, he was quite happy with the dream he was having. In this dream, the warmth of his basking rock was helping to paint the picture of a vast beach. A lush, picturesque beach, littered with all the amenities a baby dragon like him could ask for. A pit of gemstones lay a scant few feet from his reclining spot, full to the brim with only the most delectable of delights. The comic store stood tall on the boardwalk, boasting multiple copies of every single variant cover he'd missed out on collecting, as well as a few new ones with himself featured prominently. And standing above him, dressed in a cute little bikini that managed to be very modest and very alluring at the same time, was Rarity, smiling sweetly down to him between feeding him some of those gemstones.
"Oh, Spiky Wikey," Rarity cooed. "I'm so very lucky to be married to a strong, handsome dragon like yourself."
"No way, Rarity," Spike responded with a grin. "I'm the lucky one." He beamed as his response caused Rarity to swoon. A happy sigh escaped his lips as he listened to the crashing of the ocean's waves against the shore. They didn't sound quite like waves, and it was odd how they were spaced so evenly, but it didn't concern him.
"I love you, Spiky Wikey,"
Rarity said softly, before leaning in and hugging him. Her cheek pressed against his, but it didn't feel anything like he'd remembered. The soft feeling of her coat was gone, replaced with a strange scaly sensation. Rarity was not scaly. The litany of facial creams she used would never allow it. Spike woke with a start as his dream came crashing down around him. Despite having woken up, he could still hear the crashing waves, although they were beginning to sound more like the flapping of a large pair of wings, and the scaly sensation still pressed against his cheek, joined by the feeling of something equally scaly gripping him tightly. He tried to turn his head to see what was going on, but his slightest movement caused the grip around him to tighten protectively. What's going on?" Spike asked groggily.
"Are you awake, little one?"
A gentle feminine voice boomed, sending vibrations rumbling against Spike's face.
"Don't fret, just relax. We're almost home."
"Home?" Spike asked, still quite hazy from his sleep. "But I was—" "Shh," the voice cooed, and then it began humming a soft, soothing lullaby. The humming sent vibrations through Spike's entire body. Spike was concerned about what was going on, but the combination of the lullaby, the relaxing vibrations, and his already prevalent sleepiness was too much, and he was soon asleep once more. Spike wasn't sure quite how long he slept for. He remembered passing out on his rock, then having the dream about the beach, then the weird one with the voice talking about going home, and then another cool one about being an astronaut. He clearly must have been asleep for a good long while if he had time for all those dreams, although time did seem to work differently in the dream world. As he woke with a yawn, he made a mental note to ask Princess Luna about that whenever he saw her next. The first thing Spike noticed was that he very much was not still on his basking rock. Barring a complete change in the world's properties that rendered rocks soft and squishy, he had clearly been moved to some manner of bed. This was something that he was used to. Twilight would often move him to his bed if he fell asleep somewhere else in the castle. With both Twilight and the castle out of the picture, this became far more problematic. Not that his new resting place wasn't comfortable. Quite the opposite, really. But the method of his relocation rose a few red flags. Spike opened his eyes slowly, wondering why he hadn't done so already. To say that the sights around him were unexpected was akin to saying that Twilight occasionally read a book or two. Gray stone walls outlined the room he found himself in, illuminated by small torches with flames contained by glass jars. Various childish decorations adorned said walls. Pictures of cartoon characters, primarily dragons that he didn't recognize, dressed as cowboys and astronauts. A certain scent, strange yet pleasant and somewhat familiar, hung in the air as he observed his surroundings through the off-white bars in front of him. Why were there off-white bars in front of him? Spike sat up with a start, looking left and right frantically. It didn't take him very long to realize that he was sitting in a large crib. The relief of his brief fear that he'd been thrown in jail for sleeping on some manner of protected rock being quelled didn't last very long. Where was he? And why was he in a crib? He quickly rose to his feet, trying to reach the top of the crib's side. Even with the highest leap he could muster, though, he couldn't reach it. He tried grabbing the bars and climbing up, but they were far too smooth to grip well. He yelped as his talons slipped from the bars, falling with a poomph back onto the soft crib bottom. He thanked his lucky stars for that comfy padding as he rubbed his back. The fall had stunned him a bit, but could have hurt much more if it wasn't quite so soft.
Is everything okay?
There was the voice from his strange dream again, this time accompanied by the sounds of clawed feet frantically clattering across stone. Spike's jaw dropped as he watched the form of a huge dragoness enter the room through the open doorway. Her huge yet slender frame took up most of the doorway, the light from the closest torch bouncing off her purple scales. So shocked was Spike that he didn't even have time to react as the dragoness zipped up to the crib, her talons reaching down and scooping under his armpits. He quickly found himself held tightly against the pink scales on the dragoness's underside, recognizing the feeling from what he had earlier thought to be a dream, yet somehow felt far more real now.
You didn't hurt yourself, did you?
The dragoness asked. Spike felt himself pulled away from the hug and effortlessly shifted around until he found himself on his back, cradled in the dragoness's arms. He felt terribly vulnerable in this position, a feeling which was not helped when one of the dragoness's talons snuck up and began tickling his belly. Spike tried valiantly to power through it, but he couldn't help how ticklish he was, and soon found himself squirming and giggling in the dragoness's arms.
Such a darling little whelp,
the dragoness cooed. Spike found himself lifted up to her face and blushed profusely as she kissed him on the forehead.
Let's figure out a nice name for you, hmm?
What? Spike asked. I have a name. It's Spike. He tried to wiggle out of the dragoness's grip, but it was no use, and he quickly found himself moved again and cradled once more.
Oh?
The dragoness asked, looking somewhat amused.
I suppose that's not a terrible name, but I can do better. Besides, that name just drips of,
she sneered,
pony.
What's wrong with ponies? Spike asked. He wasn't quite sure how he felt about the change in the dragoness's tone. For her part, the dragoness looked at him with just as much confusion.
Oh, silly whelp,
she said, giving his belly another poke.
You've been trapped with them and their dirty lies for your entire life, haven't you?
What are you talking about? Spike asked, frowning a bit.
Don't you fret, little whelp,
the dragoness said with a smile, one claw scratching under his chin.
You're safe from them now.
What do you mean? Spike asked, panic beginning to enter his voice. Who are you? Where am I?
Such an inquisitive child, the dragoness giggled. My name is Celia, but you can call me Mommy, and this is your new home.
Spike's efforts to escape from Celia's grasp redoubled, but she was far too strong for him, and he soon found himself hugged close to her body once more, her arms long and strong enough to hold his arms and legs still.
Why are you struggling, little one? Celia asked, looking genuinely confused. I promise I'll take good care of you and help you grow into a strong, handsome dragon.
Spike tried to speak, but his response was muffled by the scales on Celia's chest. She giggled softly and pulled him back, peering down at him.
Could you repeat that?
I have a home already, Spike insisted, making another ill-fated attempt to struggle from her grasp. And you took me from it! Celia stared at the squirming baby dragon for a few moments, then shook her head.
Goodness,
Celia said, returning Spike to a cradled position.
Those ponies and their terrible magics. They've really brainwashed you good, haven't they?
She began to gently rock Spike in her arms, humming softly.
Don't worry. Once our shaman gets back from his trip, we'll work on dispelling those nasty hexes.
What? No, Spike argued. They didn't brainwash me. I've lived with them all my life. They love me, and I love them. He wriggled about, making a game plan to roll out of Celia's arms into the ground below. Once he got a good look at how high up he was, he quickly decided against that plan, begrudgingly tolerating the rocking. As irritating as this whole situation was, he wasn't exactly uncomfortable like this, at least not physically.
That's what they want you to think, sweetheart, Celia said, shaking her head sadly. Ponykind seems to have some kind of vendetta against us dragons. Why, I had a friend who went off to hibernate and happened to do so near the town I found you in. And do you know what happened to him? A group of ponies accosted him, kicked him in the nose, and then bullied him until he cried and flew off.
You don't say, Spike replied, smiling awkwardly.
It's true, Celia insisted. I wouldn't be surprised if they were brainwashing you and raising you as a weapon to try and fight us off. But don't you worry your scaly little head. Mommy's here, and she'll keep you away from the bad ponies and give you a wonderful life.
Spike was raised close to her face once more and tolerated another kiss, this one on his cheek. But you're... Spike started, but he was shushed by a single talon pushing against his lips.
Shh, Celia cooed. Mommy knows you think you like the ponies. We'll take care of that when our shaman comes back next week. Now, about that name, she hummed to herself. You might not know this since you were apparently living with ponies all your life, but dragons have one name when they're young and a new name when they get older. So we need a nice, adorable name for a nice, adorable whelp. Oh, how about small scale? You're small and you have scales. She smiled sheepishly. This is why my siblings didn't let me name our pets.
But my name is... Spike tried to protest.
Your name is Small Scale, Celia said. And you're Mommy's sweet little whelp.
She smiled and set Spike back down in the crib.
Now, I'm sure I have some diapers around here somewhere.
No way! Spike quickly objected. I'm toilet trained, I swear! The sheer embarrassment of even having to utter that sentence was not lost on him as his cheeks colored. Celia hummed softly to herself again, looking him over.
Well, I'll take your word for it now, Small Scale, Celia said sweetly. But if you have an accident in your crib, you'll be wearing them until I'm sure it won't happen again.
She gave Spike a pat on the head, causing him to roll his eyes.
Now you wait here and I'll be back in a few minutes with some num-nums, all right?
Spike didn't even bother saying anything as he watched Celia abscond from the nursery. She wasn't going to believe a word he said anyway. One talon scratched at the bars of the crib as he let out a sigh. So much for that freedom.